Hey, what's up you guys? Josh here with the RC Recon channel, and today we're going to be starting a new V2 Limitless build. Now, instead of this being a step-by-step build, I'm just going to highlight some of the major things that I'm going to do to the car, and then we'll take it out and try to get over 160 with an open wheel Limitless on the road that we run on. So to start off, we're going to be running a 2028 1700 kV motor from Castle, an XLX 2, but I'll be putting those in actually towards the end of the build because I want to start by getting into the rear and front differentials, putting in some 20 million weight fluid. That'll help almost lock it up, but if anything gets squirrely, the wheels can still spin freely from one another. And then I also have this bearing kit from RC Speed Secrets, and this works for the Felony and the Limitless. These are hybrid ceramic bearings. So these are all dry, so we've got their fluid to add to it as well. And that is going to go all throughout the vehicle. So I'm going to start with that, and then we'll move on to the next piece. All right, got the four wheels off, and I did go ahead and cut the front like this. So if you want to do something similar, you can. The body, we did not cut. We're going to leave it just like that. Quick tip for you guys. Instead of using a rubber band to keep the shocks up and out of the way, try either a bread tie or a zip tie like this. And that way they'll stay from going left and right, as well as falling forward and backwards. Nothing you do here when you're working on the car will make that fall down. So just another tip. All right, you guys, so several hours later, all of the bearings except for the steering and the center spool have been replaced. So this is what you're going to be looking for. The drive shaft's not attached right now. But about that amount of freedom. Now, the rear sounds a little bit loose when it comes to mesh, but that was really the only way that I can get this differential housing to work with these gears. These are the GP5 gears. I'm probably going to end up getting the scorched housing. That actually allows for a little bit more movement of the rear diff so that you can get the gear mesh set correctly within the housing. What you don't want is, as you're turning this, for there to be any binding in the housing itself. So if you do, just add a shim, and if you get to the point where, like me, you can't really add any more shims, you can try to shave away a little bit of the housing on the right side where the bearing sits, and that'll allow you to add maybe a second or third shim. But really that requires some patience, and it introduces the risk of messing the housing up. So if I were you, I wouldn't even worry about messing with the stock differential. I would actually just get a pair of metal ones, whether that's hot racing or scorched. It will make life a lot easier for you. So anyways, it's set up pretty good now. If I end up stripping the gears, then I'll just replace them and get the appropriate housing from Scorch. But right now, it'll work for me. I want you to see how much this spins. This is stock bearings. And compare that to the ones I'm getting ready to put in. All right, and now with the new bearings installed, a lot better. So extrapolate the benefit there throughout the differentials and even on the wheel ends, and you really reduce a lot of the friction that would have been in the car if you would have just stuck with the stock bearings and ran it. So definitely a lot better. All right, so while I'm sitting here deciding on whether or not to upgrade these shafts, the center spool, front and rear shafts, for now, I'm gonna go ahead and install the 20 series motor, 2028 1700 kV right here, and put a decent sized gear on to start off while I'm waiting for the Perfect Pass speed run wing to install here. So I'll do that for now, and we'll just keep on one step at a time. Well, I immediately realized that this is not gonna work with this motor. Hole pattern is too large here, too small here, so I'm gonna have to get a different mount, at least like this, or a different motor mount altogether. Next up on build is gonna be this Perfect Pass wing. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of the packaging, get it mounted up, and show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, you guys, so we've wrapped up that installation, and I gotta tell you, I had the first version of this and there were some fitment issues, but this new version, it really fits together really nicely. Right where those two, I know it's hard to kind of focus in on, but right where that meets there used to be a gap in the old version. Everything just is a lot nicer when it comes to fit and finish. So really good upgrade, I believe. All right, you guys, so since I got a 2028 motor, it's a little too big to fit on the stock motor mount in the stock screw hole configuration. So I've got a set of Practical Proto Solutions. This is their motor mount with the differential or the center spur mount. And we're gonna get this installed. It's a little bit different than the version 1 that I've gotten. This is the newer version, but once I get it all installed, I'll show you exactly how I've got it set up. All right, so getting this motor in here, and let me get this focused, just barely rubs up against the top of this. So I'm going to get a file and just file that down just a little bit. I mean, you can see maybe just a couple of marks here. That is from the motor hitting right there. So just following that down just a little bit will allow that to fit without any more issues. All right, so just a little razor blade. Was able to get enough off there without compromising that screw down point for the front bulkhead. So now it can move freely the rest of the way in order to set the mesh properly. Well, this is the first time that I've had an issue with Practical Proto Solutions. The way this is supposed to work is you take actually the shorter of the two, because the gear mesh that I'm using right now, the tooth count is less than 81. So you're supposed to put this through this washer. And let me see if I can do that real quick. There we go. And then through here, okay, that ultimately that slides onto here. So that would go through the motor mount into here and thread onto these holes. And that's how you adjust the mesh. And then you set this grub on the edge of that, put some Loctite on these two black washers, and that's not supposed to move. But for some reason in the milling process, they milled out the threads here way too large. There's nothing for that screw to bite on in order to go in there and adjust. So total fail on their part. I've got to contact them now and get them to send me a whole new one. All right, you guys, so it turns out there's actually a little spacer or an insert in here that is supposed to go in first with red Loctite, and that is actually what the longer screws, the adjuster screws, actually go into. So I contacted the owner, and he's going to be sending me that part. He apologized for the inconvenience, of course. So while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to go ahead and put these two body locking side skirts on. They're a little beat up. I've used them on quite a few cars, but they do the job of protecting the side, unlike this plastic piece, as well as allowing me to lock the body in. So I can choose to tape the sides if I wanted to. I probably still will, but I can at least insert the body into that lip there, and it'll help keep it kind of connected to the side of the car. All right, so got those on. Now, next, again, while I'm waiting for everything to show up in the mail, I'm gonna get the XLX2 soldered up. I'm gonna put the batteries in here, see exactly where the connectors reach, and see if I want to maybe reduce the length of these batteries, the battery connectors here, just so they're not so long. I mean, you can see just how much extra space there is. I don't want a whole bunch of wires under here. We'll see what I decide to do there, but I'll go ahead and get that soldered up and show you guys what that looks like. I'm going to mount it in here and run all the wires into the receiver box, but I'm not actually going to wire anything up yet because I got to actually put the receiver and the gyro and everything I want to install in there. Well, normally you'd want to shorten these as much as possible, but if I have the batteries pointed this way, then this length here isn't too bad. I can actually leave it just like it is. Now, if I have the batteries like this, unless I was really going to, actually adjust the length of the battery wires as well, it really wouldn't pay dividends to do all of that work, right? Because this is obviously professionally done by the battery maker, as well as these ends and the solder they use here, professionally done. I don't want to cut it and introduce the risk. Even though I have pretty good confidence in my soldering abilities, I don't want to introduce the risk of, not doing it correctly, or even when I'm cutting these, touching wires by mistake, just to reduce the length here. Yeah, and I use these batteries not only in this build, but also in my other Limitless build, where this actually reaches with not that much to spare. So I think I'm going to do it like this and go ahead and solder on connectors onto this end, just as it is, and then do this series. So we'll do 2 plugs, one on this one on this one, with a jumper in between, and we'll just keep it simple like that.